Try this for 7 days before you say it doesn't work. I've seen what visceral fat does up close. It doesn't sit where you can see it. It wraps around your organs, presses on your liver, your pancreas, and slowly destroys how your body handles sugar. That's why you feel tired, why your belly won't shrink, why your numbers keep getting worse even when you're trying. And here's the part most people miss. About 99% of seniors are fighting the wrong battle. They cut calories, skip meals, try random diets, but nothing changes. Because insulin resistance is not just about how much you eat. It's about how your body responds to what you eat. Right now, inside your body, your cells are ignoring insulin. Sugar stays in your blood longer. Fat storage keeps increasing. And that stubborn belly fat, it's not just weight. It's active. It's damaging your metabolism every single day. This is where it gets frustrating, because the usual advice sounds simple. Eat less, move more. But I've seen patients do exactly that and still struggle. Not because they're lazy, because they're missing the foods that actually switch the system back on. There are certain fruits that don't just help a little. They actively improve how your body handles sugar and fat at the same time. Not magic, just things most people never think about. In this video, we will reveal 5 powerful fruits that help melt visceral fat and reverse insulin resistance. And the number 2 fruit is something almost no one expects, yet it changes how your body processes sugar from the first bite. You'll find the references in the description if you want to look deeper. But before we dive in, here's a quick question. Where are you watching from? I read and replied to every single comment. Now let's begin with fruit number 5, and this one already starts shifting your metabolism in the right direction. Number 5, passion fruit. It blocks fat storage. Most people walk right past passion fruit at the grocery store because they do not know what to do with it, and that is a huge mistake. This wrinkly, unassuming tropical fruit is quietly one of the most powerful metabolic weapons science has uncovered in recent years. A study published in the journal Clinical Nutrition followed adults with metabolic syndrome who consumed passion fruit peel extract daily for 8 weeks. At the end of the trial, participants experienced a significant reduction in fasting blood glucose and a measurable improvement in insulin sensitivity compared to the placebo group. Their systemic inflammation markers drop as well, which is critical because inflammation is one of the main drivers that makes your cells ignore insulin signals. So what makes passion fruit so effective? It comes down to a compound called phycetanol. Phycetanol is a polyphenol found in high concentrations in passion fruit seeds and pulp. Researchers at Kanazawa University in Japan discovered that phycetanol actually blocks the formation of new fat cells. It does this by inhibiting a process called adipogenesis during the early stages of fat cell development. In simple terms, when your body tries to create new fat storage cells around your organs, phycetanol steps in and shuts that process down before the cells can mature. The study showed that phycetanol suppressed adipogenesis by up to 20% in cell cultures. But that is not all. Passion fruit is also extraordinarily rich in soluble fiber, containing roughly 24 grams of fiber per cup of pulp with seeds. That fiber slows down glucose absorption in your small intestine dramatically. A study from the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro found that passion fruit peel flour reduced blood sugar spikes after meals by up to 30% in diabetic patients over a 60-day period. The fiber also feeds beneficial gut bacteria that produce short-chain fatty acids, which directly improve insulin receptor signaling throughout your body. The best way to eat passion fruit is to cut it in half, scoop out the pulp and seeds with a spoon, and eat everything inside. Do not throw away the seeds because they contain the highest concentration of phycetanol. You can eat 2 to 3 passion fruits daily, ideally 15 to 20 minutes before your main meals. The tart flavor pairs well with plain Greek yogurt, and the healthy fats in the yogurt actually enhance absorption of the fat-soluble polyphenols. You can also blend the pulp into a smoothie, but avoid straining out the seeds. If fresh passion fruit is hard to find, frozen passion fruit pulp with seeds is available at most grocery stores in the frozen fruit section and retains nearly all of the bioactive compounds. Stay away from passion fruit juice cocktails loaded with added sugars because those will spike your insulin and completely defeat the purpose. But passion fruit is just the warm-up. because the next fruit on our list fights visceral fat through a completely different biological pathway that targets inflammation directly. Number 4. Guava. It reprograms how your body responds to insulin. Guava is one of the most underrated fruits on the planet, and the science behind it is honestly incredible when you look at what it does to blood sugar and visceral fat. A randomized controlled trial published in the Journal of Clinical and Diagnostic Research studied 90 patients with type 2 diabetes who ate guava daily for 12 weeks. The results were striking. Fasting blood glucose levels dropped by an average of 15 milligrams per deciliter, and their HbA1c, which measures long-term blood sugar control, decreased by nearly 1 full percentage point. That kind of improvement is comparable to what some prescription diabetes medications deliver. The reason guava works so well starts with its extraordinarily high vitamin C content. A single guava contains over 200% of your daily recommended vitamin C intake, which is roughly 4 times more than an orange. A study from Arizona State University showed that individuals with sufficient vitamin C levels burn 30% more fat during exercise compared to those with low vitamin C status. Vitamin C is essential for the production of carnitine, a molecule that transports fatty acids into your mitochondria where they get burned for energy. Without enough vitamin C, visceral fat simply stays locked in place because your body cannot efficiently shuttle it into the fat-burning furnace. But guava has another trick that makes it truly special for insulin resistance. It contains a unique combination of polyphenols, including quercetin, catechin, and gallic acid that work together to inhibit the enzyme alpha-glucosidase in your digestive tract. This enzyme breaks down complex carbohydrates into simple glucose. When you inhibit it, sugar enters your bloodstream much more slowly after eating, which means your pancreas does not have to release a massive burst of insulin. Over time, this gentler insulin response allows your cells to resensitize to insulin naturally. A study published in the American Journal of Chinese Medicine found that guava leaf extract improved insulin sensitivity by up to 25% in animal models of metabolic syndrome. The leaves and fruit share many of the same active compounds. Guava is also packed with dietary fiber, containing about 9 grams per fruit, and the pectin fiber specifically has been shown to reduce visceral fat accumulation by improving bile acid metabolism. The best way to consume guava for maximum metabolic benefit is to eat 1 to 2 ripe guavas per day with the skin on. The skin contains up to 5 times more antioxidants than the flesh alone. Pink flesh guava varieties contain additional lycopene, which is another compound associated with reduced visceral fat in clinical studies. Eat them between meals as a standalone snack or slice them and add them to a salad. You can also brew guava leaf tea by steeping 4 to 5 dry guava leaves in hot water for 10 minutes and drinking it after meals. Studies show this tea can reduce post-meal blood sugar spikes by up to 18%. Avoid guava juices and guava paste products because processing destroys much of the fiber and concentrates the natural sugars. Now guava is impressive, but the next fruit takes things to an entirely new level because it activates your body's own internal fat-burning furnace. Before we jump ahead, press that like button and subscribe so you're here for the next breakthrough tip. Number 3. Black plums. It turns white fat into calorie-burning tissue. Black plums, sometimes called black or dark-skinned plums, are a common fruit most people enjoy in the summer without realizing they are sitting on a metabolic goldmine. The deep purple to black skin of these plums contains one of the highest concentrations of anthocyanins among all stone fruits, and these anthocyanins are the key to unlocking the powerful fat-burning process in your body. A study published in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry found that the anthocyanin content in dark-skinned plums significantly reduced adipogenesis and lipid accumulation in visceral fat cells. But here is the part that really caught researchers off guard. The anthocyanins in black plums activated something called the browning of white adipose tissue. White fat is the stubborn energy-storing fat that piles up around your organs and drives insulin resistance. Brown fat is metabolically active tissue that actually burns calories to produce heat. The plum anthocyanins triggered white fat cells to take on characteristics of brown fat cells, a process called thermogenesis. This means your body starts burning visceral fat even when you are resting on the couch. A clinical study conducted at the University of Liverpool tested prune consumption, which is simply dried plums, in overweight adults over a 12-week period. The group consuming about 170 grams of prunes daily lost an average of 2 kilograms more than the control group and showed a significant reduction in waist circumference, which is a direct proxy for visceral fat. Their inflammatory markers, including C-reactive protein, dropped by nearly 20%. Another study published in Metabolism journal found that the chlorogenic acid in plums, a powerful polyphenol concentrated in both the skin and flesh, reduced post-meal glucose absorption by up to 25%. Chlorogenic acid inhibits glucose 6-phosphatase, an enzyme in your liver that releases stored glucose into your bloodstream. By slowing this release, black plums help prevent the constant insulin surges that make your cells more and more resistant over time. Black plums also contain significant amounts of sorbitol, a natural sugar alcohol that ferments slowly in the gut and feeds beneficial lactobacillus bacteria. These bacteria produce butyrate, which strengthens your intestinal lining and prevents inflammatory molecules from leaking into your bloodstream and worsening insulin resistance. The best approach is to eat 3 to 4 ripe black plums daily, always with the skin on because the skin holds over 60% of the total anthocyanin content. Heat them as a mid-morning or mid-afternoon snack when your cortisol levels are naturally declining, which creates the optimal hormonal environment for fat metabolism. You can also slice them into oatmeal or blend them into a smoothie with some flaxseed for added omega-3 fatty acids. During off-season months when fresh black plums are unavailable, dried plums or prunes are an excellent substitute. Choose unsweetened, unpitted prunes and eat about 5 to 6 per day. Avoid plum jams, preserves, and cooked plum products because the high heat and added sugars destroy the anthocyanins and chlorogenic acid that make them so effective. But what comes next is a fruit that researchers say directly attacks the inflammatory shield that keeps visceral fat locked around your organs and resistant to burning. Number 2. Pomegranate. It dissolves the inflammation-trapping fats. Pomegranate has been used in traditional medicine for centuries, but modern science has finally revealed exactly why it is so extraordinarily effective against visceral fat and insulin resistance at the molecular level. A landmark study published in the International Journal of Obesity followed overweight adults who consumed pomegranate extract daily for 30 days. The results were dramatic. Participants showed a significant reduction in visceral fat markers and a measurable decrease in the expression of fatty acid binding protein, which is a molecule that helps fat accumulate around internal organs. But the insulin resistance findings were even more impressive. A randomized controlled trial published in Nutrition Research tested pomegranate juice consumption in patients with type 2 diabetes. After 12 weeks of drinking about 200 milliliters of pure pomegranate juice daily, participants experienced a 32% reduction in insulin resistance as measured by the HOMA-ER index, which is the gold standard test for insulin sensitivity. Their fasting insulin levels dropped and their cells were absorbing glucose significantly more efficiently. The compound responsible for most of this is called punicalagin, and it is found almost exclusively in pomegranates. Punicalagin is one of the most potent natural antioxidants ever studied, with an oxygen radical absorbance capacity that exceeds green tea and red wine by a wide margin. When punicalagin reaches your gut, it gets converted by your intestinal bacteria into a molecule called urolithin A. This is where the real magic happens. Urolithin A activates a cellular cleanup process called mitophagy, which is the selective removal of damaged mitochondria from your cells. Damaged mitochondria in your fat cells and muscle cells are one of the primary reasons insulin resistance develops in the first place. They cannot process energy efficiently. They leak reactive oxygen species that damage insulin receptors, and they cause your metabolism to slow down dramatically. Urolithin A clears out this damaged cellular machinery and stimulates the production of fresh, healthy mitochondria. A study from the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology found that urolithin A improved mitochondrial function by up to 42% in muscle cells, which directly translates to better glucose uptake and reduced insulin resistance. Pomegranate also contains ellagic acid, which has been shown to inhibit the enzyme 11-beta-hydroxysteroid dehydrogenase type 1. This enzyme converts inactive cortisone into active cortisol specifically within visceral fat tissue. By blocking this enzyme, pomegranate reduces local cortisol production inside your belly fat, which slows down further fat accumulation in that area. The best way to consume pomegranate is to eat the fresh seeds, called arils, directly from the fruit. One medium pomegranate provides roughly 150 arils. Eat about half a cup to 1 cup of arils daily, chewing the seeds thoroughly to release the puny collagen from within. You can also drink pure unsweetened pomegranate juice, about 200 milliliters per day, but the fresh arils are preferable because they contain more fiber and the whole seed delivers additional conjugated linolenic acid, a fatty acid that enhances fat oxidation. Avoid pomegranate-flavored drinks, cocktails, or sweetened pomegranate products because the added sugars will spike your insulin and completely negate the metabolic benefits. And now we arrive at the number 1 fruit on this list, the one that produced the most dramatic clinical results researchers have ever seen in a natural food for fighting visceral fat and reversing insulin resistance. Number 1. Red grapefruit. It flips your metabolism's master switch in 7 days. Red grapefruit is not the same as the pale white variety your grandparents used to eat for breakfast. The deep ruby red flesh contains dramatically higher concentrations of bioactive compounds, and the clinical research behind it is the most compelling of any fruit on this list for simultaneously attacking visceral fat and reversing insulin resistance. A landmark study published in the Journal of Medicinal Food followed 91 obese participants over 12 weeks. One group ate half a fresh red grapefruit before each meal 3 times a day. Another group drank grapefruit juice. A third took a supplement. And the fourth received a placebo. The fresh red grapefruit group lost an average of 1.6 kilograms and showed a dramatic improvement in insulin resistance. Their 2-hour post-glucose insulin levels dropped significantly, which is a direct measure of how efficiently your body is handling sugar after eating. But here is what makes red grapefruit the number 1 fruit on this list. It contains the highest natural concentration of flavonoid called naringenin among all commonly available fruits. Naringenin activates an enzyme in your liver called AMP-activated protein kinase, known as AMPK. Think of AMPK as your body's metabolic master switch. When AMPK gets activated, your cells shift from fat storage mode into fat-burning mode. Your liver starts breaking down stored triglycerides, your muscles increase glucose uptake, and your visceral fat cells begin releasing their stored energy. A study from the University of Western Ontario found that naringenin completely corrected metabolic dysfunction in subjects fed a high-fat diet. It normalized triglyceride levels, restored insulin sensitivity to near-normal values, and reduced visceral fat accumulation by a remarkable margin. The researchers stated that naringenin essentially mimicked the effects of 2 different classes of diabetes drugs simultaneously, one that improves insulin sensitivity and another that controls lipid metabolism. No single pharmaceutical does both as effectively as this one natural compound, but red grapefruit has another mechanism that puts it ahead of every other fruit on this list. It contains a compound called nootkatone, which is responsible for its distinctive sharp aroma. A study published in the American Journal of Physiology found that nootkatone activated AMPK in both liver and muscle tissue and significantly reduced visceral fat accumulation over a 12-week period. The nootkatone group showed a 19% reduction in visceral fat weight compared to controls. This dual activation of AMPK through both naringenin and nootkatone creates a synergistic fat-burning effect that no other fruit can match. Red grapefruit also powerfully inhibits alpha-glucosidase, the enzyme that breaks down complex carbohydrates into simple sugars in your intestines. By blocking this enzyme, it dramatically slows how fast glucose enters your bloodstream after a meal. A study from the University of California found that this effect reduced post-meal blood sugar spikes by up to 28%, which takes enormous pressure off your pancreas and allows your insulin receptors to gradually resensitize over time. The best protocol backed by the research is simple and consistent. Eat half a fresh ruby red grapefruit 20 to 30 minutes before your two largest meals of the day. Do not add any sugar to it. The slight bitterness is where the naringenin is most concentrated. Eat the flesh along with the thin white pith and membranes between the segments because those membranes contain up to 5 times more flavonoids than the juice alone. If you cannot tolerate the bitterness, a tiny drizzle of raw honey is acceptable, but keep it under half a teaspoon. Ruby red and star ruby varieties contain the highest naringenin and lycopene levels, so choose those over white or pink varieties whenever possible. One essential warning you need to hear. Red grapefruit interacts with certain medications including statins, blood pressure drugs, and some antihistamines because it inhibits an enzyme called CYP3F4 that metabolizes those drugs. If you take any prescription medications, talk to your doctor before starting a daily grapefruit routine. But for most people who are not on conflicting medications, half a red grapefruit twice a day is the single most effective fruit-based intervention for visceral fat and insulin resistance that clinical science has ever documented. So there you have it. 5 fruits that most people walk right past at the grocery store without ever realizing what they could do for their health. Passion fruit blocks new fat cells from forming before they even have a chance to mature around your organs. Guava reprograms your insulin response and gives your body the vitamin C it needs to shuttle fat into the furnace. Black plums activate thermogenesis and transform stubborn white fat into calorie-burning tissue. Pomegranate rebuilds your damaged mitochondria and dissolves the inflammatory wall that keeps visceral fat trapped in place. And red grapefruit flips your metabolism's master switch through a dual AMPK activation that no other natural food on Earth can replicate. Each one works through a completely different biological pathway, which means combining even 2 or 3 of them into your weekly routine creates a multi-angle attack on visceral fat that your body simply cannot ignore. You do not need to eat all 5 every day. Pick the ones you enjoy, stay consistent for at least 7 days, and let the science do the rest. Your body knows how to heal itself when you give it the right fuel. If this video opened your eyes to something new, hit that subscribe button so you never miss what comes next. Thank you so much for watching.